Book 1, The Blazing Ronin, Wandering Blades. Chapter 25, The Ronin's Newest Disciple. Akira stood impassively before the towering obsidian monoliths, his mind still reeling from the revelations that had unfolded over the past few days. The inevitability of the Defiler's return, the ancient primordial evil whose insatiable hunger threatened to unmake all of creation. The Ronin's piercing emerald gaze swept over his gathered vanguard as he prepared to lay out the path of spiritual rebirth and transcendence that had been offered to them. The chance to undergo the same transformation he had, to be unmade and reforged in the fires of oblivion as living embodiments of the Old One's limitless power. It was the only way, Akira had come to realize. If he and his warriors were to have any hope of combating the Defiler's return, of cutting through that ancient primordial evil's insatiable hunger, then they would need abilities far beyond those of mere mortals. As the Ronin opened his mouth to give voice to the revelations burning within him, a strange presence seemed to materialize at the edge of the clearing. Akira tensed, his katana angling forward as a young man emerged from the dense tree line. The newcomer was dressed in the simple robes of a wandering monk, his lean and athletic build evident beneath the faded garments. A mop of unruly dark hair framed a youthful, eager face that seemed to shine with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "You." The young man breathed, his voice tinged with quiet reverence as he studied Akira and the gathered vanguard. "It is really you, the legendary Blazing Ronin. I had heard the tales, but I never could have imagined." The newcomer trailed off, seeming to struggle with finding the right words. Finally, after a moment's hesitation, he straightened and squared his shoulders in a show of determination. "My name is Daichi," the young man stated, his voice ringing with quiet conviction. "And I have walked these lands for years, dedicating my life to the path of the warrior in hopes of one day proving myself worthy of your tutelage." A stunned silence fell over the clearing as the weight of Daichi's proclamation seemed to linger in the air like a suffocating miasma. Akira studied the young man carefully, able to sense the undercurrent of reverence and hunger burning within him. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the Ronin found his voice once more. "You seek to walk the path I have blazed?" he asked carefully, his deep baritone laced with a mixture of intensity and quiet amusement. "To dedicate your blade to the same notions of honor and redemption that have guided my warriors and I these past few years." Daichi seemed to swell with determination at Akira's words, his youthful features hardening into a mask of grim resolution. "I do, great master," the young man stated, falling to one knee and bowing his head reverently. "For your legend has become a beacon to me, a shining light cutting through the darkness and uncertainty that has plagued these lands since the Emerald Cataclysm." Daichi fell silent for a moment, seeming to carefully consider his next words. Finally, he continued in a low, anguished tone. "I have seen what a world without your guidance, without the Old One's infinite truth has wrought. My family, my entire village, slaughtered before my eyes by Ito's Crimson Lotus assassins when I was just a child." The young man's eyes blazed with a mixture of sorrow and fury as he leveled his intense stare at Akira once more. "They fell victim to the same corrupted forces you now find yourself battling, Ronin. The same insatiable hunger for oblivion that seeks to unmake all of creation." Daichi fell silent once more, his expression hardening into a mask of grim determination as he gave a solemn nod. "Which is why I have sworn to dedicate my life to your path, your teachings. I will not allow my existence to remain shackled by the limits of this mortal realm, not when there are still those who seek to perpetuate the cycle of darkness and uncertainty." Akira regarded the young man for a long moment, feeling that same strange swelling of emotion tightening his chest. Daichi's convictions, his resolve to walk the path of the Blazing Ronin, it was humbling to witness, a reminder of the powerful draw his legend had become in these turbulent times. The Ronin gave the young warrior an appraising look, taking in his lean, athletic build and the quiet intensity burning in his eyes. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Akira found his voice once more. "You understand that the path you seek to walk is one fraught with incredible hardship and sacrifice, do you not?" he asked carefully. that my warriors and I now find ourselves standing upon the precipice of a journey that could elevate us beyond the limits of this mortal existence entirely. Daiichi's eyes widened slightly at the Ronin's words, that undercurrent of awe and reverence seeming to intensify. But to his credit, the young man did not falter or turn away, he simply squared his shoulders once more and leveled his intense stare at Akira. Then it is a journey I am prepared to walk alongside you, no matter the sacrifices required, Daiichi stated, his voice ringing with quiet conviction. For if there is a path that can lead us to the same limitless truth you have embraced, one that can elevate me beyond the shackles of this mortal realm, then I will not hesitate to face any hardship in order to prove myself worthy. A heavy silence fell over the clearing as the weight of the young warrior's proclamation seemed to linger in the air like a suffocating miasma. Akira studied Daiichi carefully, able to sense the undercurrent of determination and hunger thrumming through his entire being. This was no mere starry-eyed initiate seeking glory or adventure. No, there was a deeper intensity burning within the young man, one that had clearly been forged in the fires of tragedy and loss. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the Ronin gave a slight nod of acknowledgement. With a sweeping gesture, he conjured a series of shimmering rune projections that rapidly took the form of a winding path flanked by towering obsidian monoliths. Then you shall seek to walk the path of spiritual rebirth alongside my blazing vanguard, Daiichi, Akira stated, his deep voice resonating with quiet power. The sacred journey that will elevate us beyond the limits of this mortal existence, reforging our shells as living embodiments of the Old One's limitless power. The young warrior's eyes widened as the Ronin's markings flared brilliantly, bathing the clearing in an ethereal emerald light. Akira leveled his piercing stare at Daiichi, holding the newcomer's gaze as he allowed the full weight of his next words to sink in. But be warned, the road ahead will be fraught with more challenges and revelations than you could possibly fathom. You will be asked to shed everything, to surrender your mortal form entirely and embrace the infinite truth of creation itself. Daiichi could only stare at the shimmering rune projections in stunned silence, his mind clearly struggling to fully comprehend the path being laid out before him. Akira watched carefully as a series of emotions played across the young warrior's features. Awe, trepidation, and finally a burning determination as Daiichi straightened once more, squaring his shoulders as he leveled his intense stare at the Ronin. Then it is a path I will walk unflinchingly, my master, he stated, his voice ringing with quiet conviction. No matter what revelations or sacrifices are required of me, I will not hesitate to embrace the infinite truth you have glimpsed. Akira regarded the young warrior for a long moment before giving a solemn nod of acceptance. He could sense it, that undercurrent of resolve burning within Daiichi's entire being. A thirst for something greater, a hunger to elevate himself beyond the shackles of this mortal realm and embrace a new path of limitless power. It was the same fire that had first drawn the Ronin to take Ren under his wing all those years ago. The same intensity that had marked Takeshi as a chosen celestial guardian, destined to walk the path of the Old One's infinite truth. Slowly, reverently, Akira extended his hand and gripped Daiichi's shoulder, causing the young warrior to look up with shining eyes. Then bear witness to the infinite depths of creation's power, my newest disciple, the Ronin intoned, his deep voice resonating with quiet intensity. For the journey we are about to embark upon will shake the very foundations of everything you think you understand about this existence. As Akira spoke, the rune projections rapidly expanded and intensified until Daiichi had to avert his eyes against the blinding emerald light. The young warrior gasped as a series of visions exploded across his mind's eye, revealing glimpses of the Old Ones themselves. Humanoid figures of blinding energy, their forms composed of the same searing emerald flames that seemed to resonate through Akira's very being. Daiichi could only watch in stunned silence as entire celestial realms were birthed and died in the blink of an eye, the cosmic forces of creation and destruction given form in an endless cycle of rebirth. And at the center of the cosmic maelstrom, the young warrior saw the Ronin's vanguard. But they were different, their forms composed of those same swirling emerald energies as the vision surrounding them. Living embodiments of the Old One's limitless power, blazing like stars amidst the ethereal ether. This is the path that lies before you, Daichi, a strange reverberating voice echoed through the visions, its words resonating with quiet intensity. The sacred journey of spiritual rebirth that will elevate you and your new brothers and sisters in arms beyond the limits of this mortal existence. The imagery intensified until the young warrior felt as if he were being overwhelmed, his mind struggling to fully comprehend the sheer enormity of the revelations unfolding around him. Entire realms of existence seemed to be unraveling and rewebbing themselves in the blink of an eye, the cosmic forces of creation and destruction given form in an endless cycle of transcendence. You must be prepared to surrender your mortal shell entirely, Daichi, the alien voice continued, its words carrying the unmistakable weight of destiny itself. To walk the path of spiritual rebirth unflinchingly, allowing your physical form to be unmade and then reforged in the image of the Old One's limitless power. Daichi could only watch the visions unfold in stunned silence, his mind struggling to fully comprehend the path being laid out before him. To shed his mortal form entirely, to be unmade and then reborn as a living embodiment of creation's infinite energies. It was overwhelming, almost too much for the young warrior's mind to fully process. And yet, he could not deny the truth burning in the reverberating voice's words, the sheer enormity of the power and significance surrounding the visions. This was to be his path, the means by which he would finally be elevated beyond the limits of this mortal realm. By walking the sacred journey of spiritual rebirth alongside Akira and his Blazing Vanguard, Daichi would transcend the shackles of his current existence and be reforged as a living instrument of the Old One's limitless abilities. It was everything the young warrior had dreamed of, the infinite truth he had sought for so long. And yet, a small part of Daichi couldn't help but feel a tremor of trepidation, of doubt about whether he was truly prepared to surrender himself so completely to the revelations unfolding around him. The visions intensified once more, swirling around the young man in a dizzying kaleidoscope of cosmic forces and alien landscapes. Daichi could only watch in stunned silence as his own form seemed to shift, his body and spirit becoming intertwined with those same emerald energies. This is to be your path, Daichi, the reverberating voice echoed through his consciousness, its words resonating with quiet intensity. A journey of spiritual transcendence that will remake you in the Old One's limitless image, a living embodiment of creation's infinite truth. The young warrior gasped as the visions intensified further, revealing a series of ornate archways shimmering with power. Daichi recognized them instantly, they were the same constructs that made up the winding path of the Emerald Trail, the means to decipher the Old One's prophecies. It is then that you will be prepared to walk the path of spiritual rebirth, the alien voice intoned, its words resonating with the unmistakable weight of destiny. To shed your mortal form entirely and be reforged in the celestial image, remade as a living embodiment of creation's limitless power. The imagery intensified until Daichi felt as if he were being overwhelmed once more. Entire celestial realms seemed to be birthed and dying in the space of a heartbeat, the cosmic forces of creation and destruction given form in an endless cycle of rebirth and transcendence. And at the center of it all, the young warrior saw himself. But he was different, his form composed of those same swirling emerald energies as the visions surrounding him. A living embodiment of the Old One's limitless power, blazing like a star amidst the ethereal ether. This is the truth that awaits you at the end of your journey, Daichi, the reverberating voice echoed through the cosmic visions, its words resonating with quiet intensity. The spiritual rebirth that will elevate you to a state of existence far beyond your current mortal limitations. Gaze upon it, newly anointed disciple, and embrace your path as a living truth of creation reborn. Daichi could only watch the imagery unfold in stunned silence, his mind struggling to fully comprehend the enormity of the revelations being laid bare. To think that by walking this sacred journey, by surrendering himself completely to the path of spiritual rebirth, he could be remade as a living embodiment of the Old One's limitless power? It was overwhelming, almost too much for the young warrior's mind to fully process. And yet, he could not deny the truth resonating through his very being, the undercurrent of significance that seemed to blaze just as brilliantly as the visions surrounding him. This was to be his path, the means by which Daichi would finally achieve everything he had dedicated his life to from the moment the Emerald Cataclysm took his family. He would walk the sacred journey of spiritual transcendence unflinchingly, no matter what revelations or sacrifices were required of him. For at the end of that road, the young warrior would be remade in the Old One's image. Reforged as a living instrument of creation's infinite truth, a force of limitless power capable of cutting through the darkness and restoring balance to these war-torn lands. It was everything Daichi had ever dreamed of, and so much more. The visions began fading as the reverberating voice grew fainter and more distorted, pulling the young man back towards the material realm. "Embrace your destiny, Daichi," the alien voice echoed one final time, its words resonating through his very soul. "For your path as the Blazing Ronin's newest disciple, has only just begun to burn away the darkness." The young warrior's eyes snapped open with a sharp gasp, his entire body covered in a sheen of sweat as he returned to full consciousness. Daichi blinked rapidly, struggling to reorient himself as the visions and revelations continued swirling through his mind. He could still feel the presence of that esoteric force, the alien entity that had laid bare the infinite truth of the path awaiting him. The sacred journey of spiritual rebirth that would elevate Daichi beyond the limits of this mortal realm, reforging him as a living embodiment of the Old One's limitless power. The young man's piercing gaze swept over Akira and the gathered vanguard, taking in their expressions of quiet intensity. He could sense the undercurrent of determination thrumming through them, that same hunger for something greater that now burned just as brilliantly within Daichi's own being. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the young warrior found his voice once more.